Well, Tim, we're here in your studio.
Yep.
This is the first, non-janky studio we recorded. I usually bring my studio with me.
Yeah,
this
sure.
janky setup.
Right.
Our podcast has been recorded in hotel rooms, lobbies.
I'm sure.
Closets of various kinds.
Yeah.
And I'm in an official, real place.
Yeah.
Where there's mics permanently installed.
Yeah.
It feels illegal.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad that it does. Yeah. Well, we record all the audio for Bible Project stuff in here. So
wow.
It's a great space. We're really grateful for it.
Oh man, it is a great space.
It's an interesting space for many reasons.
Like what?
So we're sitting in the shell of a building that was the first Foursquare Church up here in Portland, Oregon. So this was, when the Foursquare movement began out of California, right up the I-5 corridor. So Portland was not long after Foursquare began.
Right.
And so the building's pretty old, but it's been completely gutted and reshaped inside. So we're on the third story of like a tower.
Right.
That looks from a distance like was that a church bell tower? Maybe it used to be.
Yeah.
So that's one interesting thing. And so this was actually the sanctuary, right?
Oh, really?
Through those walls, you can go into this weird room that got holed in, and it's the balcony of the old sanctuary.
Oh.
So we're like in the balcony.
Interesting.
And the sanctuary would have been, where my back is.
Yeah, yeah.
So then it got repurposed and reshaped as the church grew. Multiple buildings were added on. And then in the 1980s, it was used as a school, a Christian private school.
Oh.
That the Portland Foursquare Church, helped sponsor. And my parents enrolled me in this private school, yes, for third through sixth grade, Jay.
Wow.
And so I attended classes in the rooms that we now use for the Bible Project, which we lease, a lot of space in here.
Wow.
And this room was the principal's office. And Jay, the day that I got expelled from that Christian school in the sixth grade.
This is so good.
I had assaulted my teacher.
Oh, no.
Push him down the stairs that you and I walked up a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Those long, steep cement stairs.
Yeah.
I was very angry at him. He was angry at me. We had been in an altercation already that day. And so I got expelled, and I was brought up here, and I was spanked by the principal in this room.
Oh, my goodness.
With a wooden, waffle paddle.
Wow. Those are different days.
Totally. So anyway, it's like the height of irony.
Totally.
That the Bible Project ended up leasing space in this building, and then this became one of the most regular spaces that I'm in.
Yes.
So anyway, I thought you'd find that story
I find
interesting.
that incredible, and it makes me want to ask 400 questions in a row.
Yeah.
But it really does, because it's like, first, this is more salient to the story you just told. How did you discover or remember that quickly? Like when you're, you're doing all the things you do for Bible Project, then you're like, okay, we're in this kind of space. How long before you were like, wait a minute?
Yeah. Oh, no, it was the day.
Instant.
The day that we, because we were looking for some spaces. We had to move out of our previous space. And then the person who was helping us with our finances for Bible Project also was employed part-time by the church that leases this building. And so he was like, oh, man, there are some spaces in the church.
Right.
And so, but then the moment we walked in, I'm like, I went to school here. So I remember this room vividly.
I would say.
Yeah. No, it's I feel like it's a part of the poetic humor and grace that God is weaving in the story of my life.
Well, yeah, that is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you I'm sure you've listened to every episode of our podcast, so I need not tell you this, but just in case you haven't, what we mostly do is just hear people's stories.
Yeah.
And what that enables us to do is see how God has moved through their life. And, for some of our guests, if they're in the Vineyard, it kind of helps see, okay, this is how the Vineyard fits into your story. But a lot of our folks aren't in the vineyard.
Yeah.
And so the reason we're talking to them is because there's stuff that has come from their life that does impact and influence, and or we want more influence. And that would definitely be you and the Bible Project. I was here before filming the interviews we used for our national conference.
Yeah, yes.
Which did wonderfully well.
Great. That was a really fun day. I really enjoyed
it was so fun for me and impactful. And those videos were really, really helpful. And we built a number of resources around them so people could use them with their staff or with their teams. But that all came about because I shamelessly stalked you.
That's right. It's true. I think I said no to you a couple times.
Many ways. Yeah, you tried all the ways.
Yeah.
You know, it was...
It wasn't personal. I didn't even know you. So it wasn't personal.
No, it's you being wise and thoughtful and prayerful.
Yeah.
Until I just kept bothering you. And then eventually it came down to, if you come on this day in our building, film it in this window. Yeah. I'll do it. And I was like, done. You know, we showed up with a team, whatever.
Yeah.
And yet you were so kind to me. Even when we first met, you were like, I really think this is God. And I was like, that's good, because that's what I think. And and it has borne fruit for us, for what it's worth, which is why we wanted to make sure we got some more time with you.
Yeah.
But in this, it's just story. So we kind of got up to 6th grade. Was that 6th grade?
Well, yeah. Yep.
Okay,
right.
so we can go back, and then we must see where we are on the map. We got to come back to that.
Deal. Okay.
Okay. But so tell me where you were born, where you grew up. Was it around here?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. In the neighborhood where this building is. So we're in inner southeast Portland. So just, 10 blocks that way is the river that divides Portland east and west. So East Portland, and then I grew up maybe a mile and a half just from right here.
Right here.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's right in the middle of the city, but the east side are basically the oldest neighborhoods in Portland. And my dad was an artist, self-employed artist. He did hand-painted graphic design on like hot rods and logging fleet trucks. Like there's always the names of companies on the sides of doors of like a tow truck or something. So he did that. And inner southeast Portland was pretty gritty. And so houses were inexpensive, but they're big old houses.
Right.
I mean, in the 70s. So anyway, they bought this big old fixer-upper and not far from here. So that's where I grew up.
And so he's an artist by background.
Yeah, and he is still doing it today. He had about a 10-year stint where he tried a career shift and found that painting still is calling him back. So he's in his mid-70s. And he's still doing it. He has a home studio. He's one of the most joyful humans I know because he loves his wife. He loves painting.
Wow.
And he gets to do it, still for his living. It doesn't feel like work to him. So, and the reason why that's interesting, the reason why I bring that up is because I spent a lot of my 20s for sure, 30s, really thinking I'm nothing at all like my dad. And it's been parenting that has really made me see the many ways I'm exactly like him and in like great ways. And so I've come to have such a fondness for my dad and his story. And so his career in painting in many ways is somewhat parallel to the odd career trajectory my life has taken.
Would say,
but there are a lot of parallels in that he can't do anything else because he can't do anything but what he loves.
Yeah.
And
he's good at it, apparently.
And he's become really good at it because he's tried a few other things, but he just couldn't stick to it because it wasn't what he felt called to do.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And your mom, so then were they from here?
My dad grew up just a few miles north of here.
Wow.
And so my grandma grew up in North Portland. Yeah, so quite a few generations here in Portland.
Which is that wouldn't be the common story around Portland, would it? It's a lot of transplants.
Yeah, the city's grown a lot
right
over the last 20 years. So a lot of transplant growth. But yeah, I mean, it was a medium-sized city before all that.
Yeah.
So there's Portlanders still around. Yeah.
And so they, I mean, that is multiple generations in, you're saying mile that way, 2 miles that way.
Yeah, right here.
And then was part of your story growing up in this thing called church, or is it not a thing? Or, I mean, if you're in the Christian school, I assume it was.
Yeah, it was by that point.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, my parents started following Jesus right before I was born.
Huh.
They were both raised in pretty strict religious environments. I think in the Plymouth Brethren world.
Yeah.
And not to say that tradition is strict, more that their families were really strict. And so they, they grew up in the 60s, so they went that whole route. And
so they did all that.
They did all that.
A lot of people did.
So my dad, they were living down in Long Beach, California.
Oh, okay.
My dad had just gotten out of service in the Navy, and it was, they just described that season of they were just high all the time.
Sure.
And, but it was through some Christian friends, and really it was, the Jesus People movement.
Really?
Was rocking the West Coast.
Yeah.
And so they met some friends who were followers of Jesus, and who was like, hey, you can get high and follow Jesus. So they were down for that for a while.
That's perfect.
And then it was like, they think the Jesus part, not so much the getting high all the time.
Yeah.
So when I was born there, our home was also the host for a house church community that my parents had helped start. And then church for me growing up was then a network of houses here in Southeast Portland. And then all the families went in and bought one huge house that was blocks from where I grew up.
Huh.
This big house. And a few families lived there. They had rooms where they could just take somebody in who needed a room. And then the big, great room was like the sanctuary. So those are my earliest memories of church, was like houses and this network of families.
They're probably running around with kids.
Yeah, mostly kids.
Basements
you're
totally. Like, that's such an interesting framework to grow up in.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because it wasn't church. It was just my family and then my family's friends, and we gather in our living rooms or in that big house.
But are they doing all the church things? They're like singing a song and
totally.
Somebody's teaching and but there's no necessarily designated pastor.
Correct. Yes. And relevant for this conversation and the audience, the reason why they had formed this house church is because they really were passionate and pursuing the gifts of the Spirit.
Wow.
And so this was then in the late 70s, early 80s, when there's a lot of charismatic, traditional cessationists, a lot of divisions.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to just start a community where the Holy Spirit could just do whatever they wanted.
Wow.
They felt like the Spirit wanted to do. So interestingly, that community ended up, my parents ended up leaving that community because of leadership conflicts. And that's when we landed at Portland Foursquare Church, which is this building.
Right.
And so on.
But so they're in sort of the house church renewal movement that was really across the country, but definitely on the West Coast, as you're describing.
Yeah.
And can you recall, or did you have experiences that were positive, negative, just nothing, just kind of, or I'm just in a basement like playing?
Yeah, one important event in my life that connects to that community, that's positive, was, I think I was in kindergarten or first grade. We went to a neighborhood school, and my mom remembers that I was complaining about my back being sore because we had walked to school. I'd walked to school with my sister. And so walking back from school one day, I just sat down, apparently, and just was like, my back hurts too bad. So my sister came, and, my mom thought she feels bad to this day, but she thought I was just like being a lazy kid.
Like, come on, let's go.
Yeah, totally. But it became a kind of prominent, like I actually didn't want to walk and couldn't walk because it hurt for a few days. So it took me to the doctor. And many tests later, I only remember one, was I had a extremely rare autoimmune disease where my body was attacking the sheathing around my spinal cord.
Wow.
It's super rare, called Guillain-Barré. It's a French name for the French doctor who discovered it. So the one appointment I remember was a spinal tap.
Yeah, you will remember that.
Oh. And so I've asked my dad about this because I'm like a naked little boy on this table in a huge room surrounded by doctors, and my dad is there with me. They would only let him be with me. And now as a dad of 2 boys, I try to relive that memory, thinking from his perspective. But he got me a little panda teddy bear that my son sleeps with now. So that's kind of a special memory. So the diagnosis was that I wouldn't walk for quite a while. Like it was going to take out my mobility, and as I grow and develop, may not be able to walk normally. So, dude, Jay, so they called all the people in the house churches to begin praying. And so I remember a Sunday gathering where they brought me to the center of the living room and like anointed my head with oil and prayed for me. And within 3 months, I was already beginning to be able to walk again. And by 6 months, there was like nothing.
Gone.
Yeah. And it was one of those, like, the doctors just were like,
who knows?
That happens sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, that's an important personal memory.
I'd say.
It's, as I've meditated on it over the years. But in terms of that community, that's obviously a really positive, powerful experience that has, when I was 6 or 7, I don't sink in what had happened. I'm just like, I can run now. Yay.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. But, you're not seeing the breadth of it. Right.
Anyhow, I feel like that moment, I've had some experiences in the last couple of years where it feels like there's been some bookending of different events, and that event has come to have a lot of significance for me.
I bet. So you have this kind of, it's so interesting to think through lenses too, when you think about moments like this where when you're in a thing, it's just what you know.
Yeah.
But then if you think about what would it be like to look at that from the outside, that just looks kind of weird and almost, like we planted a church very similarly. We had homes and we're all in houses and I'm waiting tables and whatever. And the weird experience of inviting someone like, you should come to church. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, where is that? Well, there's this white house right there. And they're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
That's their immediate response is, no, that's some kind of cult thing. So, but when you're in whatever you're doing, especially as a kid, it's like,
sweet.
I don't know. And apparently they bring me in the middle and somebody prays for me and now I can run again. That's cool.
Yeah.
And
That's right. That's exactly
the scope of it's like, you just don't have another reference point.
Yeah.
And then they leave because of leadership stuff. Then you're in a Foursquare thing, which also has they're going to be like, we do all those things.
Yep, that's right. So I think what my parents were excited about was a church community that embraced all the expressions of the gifts of the Spirit.
Yep.
But it was in the 80s, like one of the mega churches in central Portland, meaning about 1,000 people.
Right. Which is a big church in Portland, especially.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, even still today.
And now you're in a Christian school.
Yeah. So, our family started attending that church and then going to school in the associated building with that. So I was here 6 days a week.
Wow.
And it's mostly negative memories, but I think I was a jerk. Like, I think I was
I was contributing to the negative memories, right?
Yeah.
Right.
As my parents remember it, I wasn't really like a problem at home, but something about the nature of the environment here
didn't work.
I was constantly in trouble.
Yeah. And do you have siblings?
I do. I have an older sister. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is she like doing fine? Like she moves through it?
Yeah. Right. At this phase, we kind of flip-flopped in our teenage years.
Sure. Yeah, that tends to happen. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but something about it.
Something about it. And so by the 6th grade year, me and my 6th grade teacher were. I can't imagine what it was like to have me as a student. My memory, and I couldn't believe I have to have this guy as a teacher. Right. So anyway, we we're in class 2 years together. So by the midway through the 6th grade year, I assaulted him and attempted to push him down a very large set of stairs.
That's an escalation. That's an escalation.
Yeah.
We're in danger zone now.
So another key event is when I was 11. So this would have been my 5th grade year. My parents for Christmas gave me my first skateboard and a subscription to Thrasher magazine.
Oh yeah, man.
Which was at that time there was 2 magazines. There's Trans World, which is cool. It's cool. But Thrasher is cool, and it's like punk rock.
Yeah, it's edge.
Yeah.
It's got a thing, right.
So I discovered skateboard culture, and also which was flourishing as a subculture right here in East Portland. There's a really famous skateboard park underneath a bridge called Burnside, just a few blocks from here. And so I just, met friends in my neighborhood and just loved that. So that kind of became my subculture.
Yeah.
And so everything to do with church and school, which was a package deal, was just like...
It's a collision. Yeah.
Yeah, forget that stuff. So I know that was a part of... My parents didn't quite know what they were putting in my hands.
Right. And were you are you wearing the gear and your...
Well, I had to wear uniforms at school. Okay. So that was part of it. I mean, one day I came home and set my button shirt on fire. After beginning of school, my mom
just symbolic.
My mom was so mad.
That's right.
So just like what? And but I'm looking at Thrasher magazine and hanging out with my buddies who go to public school, and like they don't have to wear a button-up shirt and tuck it in.
Right.
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. Anyway. Well, your worlds are expanding. and they're colliding.
Yeah, totally.
So you have this horrible moment with a teacher.
Yeah.
And that are like, I'm sorry, you just can't be here.
Yeah, that's right. So
that's got to end now.
So I was expelled from school. I did homeschool with my mom for half a year. There was another private school on the west side that I went to for 2 years, and then I went to public high school here in Portland. And was sort of like, by the time it was at public high school, it was like, freedom.
And so in those days, were you still like an academic kid? I mean, were you
No.
So,
nothing. Not at all.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, yes. Yeah, well, I think it was my personality, like my dad. It was all about passion. Like, what are you? And so then it was like skateboarding.
Yeah.
Skateboarding,
having fun.
So I'd be with my friends, but also I'd go skateboarding by myself and like try the same trick.
Right.
For 2 hours.
Yeah. So you really, really loved it. It wasn't just social. It was like, I love this.
I just loved it, and never did team sports, but I really got into skateboarding. And so I think that the temperament is still actually very the same today, where I can focus for long periods of time and forget about my bodily needs.
Yeah. Obsessive kind of focus.
Yeah, not obsessive compulsive, but like passion driven.
Into it, right.
And when I'm in the zone, I'm in some twilight time zone. But so skateboarding provided me both a community and a sense of identity and self. And so I really distanced myself from anything positive about Jesus.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I don't know why I've never thought about this. I should have thought this before now. But if you're going to church at the place you're going to school, and then your parents still want to go to the church, but you're expelled from the school, can you do that?
Yeah.
I guess technically, officially you can.
Yeah, well, but they made me. But it was a battle.
Right.
Like it's a weekly battle.
That's interesting, because it's all mashed together.
Yeah,
where you can't just pull one out and think it'll be okay.
Yeah.
So you're theoretically supposed to go to youth group. But
but I refused to go.
Yeah, of course. Well, and it's the kids from the school that I did the thing with. I don't want to hang out with these people.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay. So everything just starts splintering.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's right. Yeah. So when I was in 8th grade, my mom remembers this. I hardly do. But I sat them down, because they were in the habit of, if there's something important, have a family meeting, go sit in the living room.
Yep.
And so I asked them to have a family conversation.
Wow.
And said, I don't want to be a Christian. I don't want you to make me go to church anymore, please. Is it okay? If you don't make me go, I'll go occasionally when you want me to go to holiday of stuff or like that.
Wow.
And so my parents remember that conversation.
I bet they do.
And
they do.
Yeah. So they decided to be brave and let me have my request.
Wow.
And they decided to go the long game and just pray. And because they said there was this move made in an effort to save the relationship. Because they're like, if we are close relationally,
right,
then no matter what this kid does, we'll be a safe place and we'll be here. And so, again, now as a parent, as I rethink that would be such a complex conversation to have. But so anyway, they quit making me go to church, and that began my teenage years. And
scary time to make that decision.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and what's interesting is how strong, that shows you have a certain kind of strength pretty young. I mean, that's an unusual thing for a kid that age to just decide. Like,
well, it probably also speaks to the family culture that they created.
Say, the connection. Yeah. So both things are true.
Yeah.
We're connected enough that I can tell you the truth. I feel strong enough that I can tell you the truth. And they feel brave. I like the way you said that. They make a brave choice. Say, I think we're connected enough that, and we're seeing the long game, we're going to let this play out.
Yeah. And just trust and pray that Jesus will get a hold of this kid in his own way and time.
I can't imagine, though, the anguish. I mean, like when you're not there or at night when they're talking, or even Sunday morning waking up and
totally
doing the thing. And then, but there'd been enough, obviously, shown from being expelled from a school and whatever else. I mean, I'm sure they have eyes in their
pieces
head.
Together.
Yeah, they're going,
yeah.
Boy, this is tough.
Yeah.
This is not easy.
Yeah, I guess because the choice would be, do we maintain this family practice of being a part of a church community at the expense of any later positive experiences he might have but not be open to? Because for him, Jesus is associated with all the things that he can't stand. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting also that they're like, this is our church.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, they were super involved. Super involved.
I don't know what happened here.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't great for you, because I'm sure they're interacting with a principal and you got to see those people in the hallways.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're like, this is our church.
Yep.
I mean, let's put it this way. People have left churches for way less than the awkward moment with my kid.
Yeah.
What? That's a lot of tensions to hold.
Yeah, it is. No, they were I don't think they were ever in official leadership, but imagine your active dream leader volunteers at a church. And they're teaching, my parents taught a marriage class that they created all the curriculum for.
Wow.
And they were super involved. So I think it was I put them in a tough situation.
Yeah.
And, but woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm glad that they gave me the space, because I really, in all those years, it just began a long season from 13 to 19 of, other than my parents, virtually no Christians influencing my life at all. And that could have gone a lot of ways.
Yeah, it does often for people. So in that freedom space, you just kind of do what you want to do. Now I'm skating guy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Hanging out with my crew. What year is it? So what year is this? I mean, are you right in the grunge Northwest culture?
Yeah, this is, let's see. I started high school in 91.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you're right in there.
Oh, it was amazing.
That's the right time to be that guy in the right place.
Yeah.
It's
great.
Man. It is. You are in the crosshairs of.
Yes.
I mean, I'm in Ohio. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
And we're pretending to be like we're from. We're here. Everyone's wearing the stuff and.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. Okay. That's You were in the crosshairs.
Yep. So it's great. So memories from that time are my friends are all over the map,
right?
Introducing me to everything you never want your kid to be introduced to. But when they would come to my house, my my friends loved to come to my house.
Yeah.
Because it was my parents, well, they, as my friends would say, like, your parents are just so generous and kind, and it feels, I now can see it was a safe, generous place for them.
Yep.
Which was really different than anything they'd ever seen. I didn't know. Kind of what you're saying earlier, right? It was just like, I don't know. Doesn't everybody love their parents?
Totally. Exactly.
And like also wanted to hang out with them too.
Well, and they've done enough. What's interesting also about the story of your parents, which isn't everyone's story, is they are deeply committed to Jesus. But they have a past. They know what this looks like. Like, I know what it looks like for a kid to be this kind of kid.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they're probably able to spot your friends like, I know what that is.
Yep.
But they're not jumping down your throat. They're not messing with you about it. Kids are still coming in and out of the house.
Yep.
That is such
that they mostly knew of.
Right. That's right. Of course. Yeah. But my hunch is they probably knew more.
Yeah.
Because there is a certain kind of Christian parent that really doesn't know.
Yeah, sure.
Like they really don't. Like they've never been in those environments. They were in whatever church thing they were in their whole life.
Yeah.
So they really can't see it. I was a youth pastor for a while and talking to parents and being like, so you know that like these kids are getting high. You know that. I mean, it's obvious. Like just if you know anything about what a kid does and doesn't do.
Yeah.
And your kid is hanging out with the kids that all they do is get high. Yeah. You know what that means, right?
There's a very clear implication.
Yeah. And they would be like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Not just about their kid, but about the other kids.
Yeah, sure.
They're like,
yeah.
What? That's not real. That's like on like movies and stuff. I'm like, no, that is not. That's what's happening right now. And the amount of times as a youth pastor, you have this horrible job of
informing parents.
Telling parents like, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm trying to help your kid. And they didn't just get caught the one time with weed. That they're lying.
Yep.
So I don't know if you know.
Sorry.
Totally. It's a weird job.
Well, so here is an irony, and I don't know because I was exposed to drinking too much in teenage years and getting high a lot, and I never got caught with my family or with my parents.
Wild.
And it is wild to me. I don't actually understand it.
Right.
But there was something, as I can look back, I have just certain memories of like going to certain parties and just having this sense of being in some environments where it's like, no, let's get out of here.
This isn't safe. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't always, all I can think is I had formed some kind of inner compass that was shaped by God's Spirit and the influence of my parents that just knew like some environments you just want to not.
Yeah, in some movie version of this, you're walking in that door and your parents are like laying on the ground on their face.
Yeah, praying.
Crying out to God.
Yeah, totally.
And you can't see any of that, but I wouldn't doubt if that's true.
Yes.
I mean, that, or someone in their small group or, you know, like they very quietly have said, just keep praying for this.
Yeah.
You never know. I don't know how any of that adds up, honestly.
Me neither, Jay.
But it seems like something's going on in those moments.
Yeah, totally. So I know when it came to especially late high school, I don't remember very much.
Right.
I was just high a lot. And I was not doing well because I could care less about school. Back to that passion thing from my dad.
Yeah, like I want to do what matters. This is dumb.
Yeah, none of this matters when it came to school. So I did graduate, just skimmed right in there. But, you know, it's like I don't remember ever reading a whole book and having to write down what I learned from the book and turn in what I write.
That's like my story, too.
I never did it because somehow I got away with not doing I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't remember it.
Read enough pages that I can kind of get what this is.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. Yeah. So I graduated from high school and got a job at UPS, like stuffing boxes, like the boxes.
That's hard work, by the way.
Yeah, it was the entry-level position.
That's very physical.
And it was a hard job.
Yeah, it is.
But my parents were like, I was living in the renting in the basement now. And they were like, well, if you're not going to go to school, then we're going to ask you to chip in to pay rent. And
I love
that kind
it.
of stuff. So, and I didn't have, I had thought, like, my dad's a painter, and I kind of grew up around art. I like art, so maybe I'll do graphic design. And I kept telling them, like, oh, maybe, like, this one art school. But I mean, I had no intentions.
I didn't want to actually do that,
totally.
but I had to keep them at bay a little bit. Like,
it was that ploy. So that's where I was at. So I was 19, graduated, working at UPS, getting high way too much, skateboarding, and I had no plans for anything else.
So again, this is going to sound redundant because I asked you a moment ago, but I'm thinking about it now. You're looking through and you're not seeing an academic thread.
No. I mean, I almost failed.
Right. But even in your own, even a teacher, nobody comes along and says, hey, you're like a bright kid. Come on, like pull it together.
No. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even give my teachers enough
They
time
wouldn't be
to
able
know
to.
me.
Right.
In fact, ironically, at my high school graduation, the teachers were giving very short, few sentence speeches about each of the students as they walked by.
This is the worst. Right.
And my parents, to this day, remember because when my name was announced, the teacher didn't know me. So
just didn't know what
didn't
to
have
say.
to say. So just like, it's a great guy. We wish you all the best or something.
That's so
And my
great.
mom was like, well, all these other kids got a nice thing said about them. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, Mom.
I don't really know them. Yeah, and they don't know me.
Yeah.
So many of my friends who now live robust academic lives have a similar story.
Oh, that's interesting.
It is really interesting. So
Wow.
Caleb Maskell.
Yeah,
We've met Caleb.
Yes.
Caleb effectively failed out of school. Similar kind of deal. Just clear Christian Holy Spirit background that was just weird and like, whatever, I don't want to do this. So he's just doing whatever he wants. Not really a clear academic thread of any kind.
Wow. Huh.
And by sort of encountering God, all these things fire in him that he didn't even know were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting to me to think about how many teachers, principals, pastors, even parents, you just can't tell.
You just can't tell
what's going on. You just can't tell.
Yes.
Like all that stuff is latent in you. Every outside signal is like, this guy,
He's a flake.
Yeah, and he's in the basement. He's working at UPS. Well, come on. We all know what this is.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
Yeah.
And to imagine that kid becomes this guy where we're sitting,
Yeah.
by any adult's estimation around them, like a teacher, a principal, maybe save your parents. They could probably see things that other people can't.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Would have just felt incomprehensible, impossible. And I mean, as far as like things that give teachers hope or pastors hope or youth pastors hope, is you really just don't know. You just don't know. And enough space and enough connection to be able, when things sort of click in, that they have somewhere to turn.
Yep, that's exactly right.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal, Jay. So, I think I'll just tie it in.
Yeah.
When I was 17, so backing up 2 years living in my basement with UPS, there was a church here in Portland that had built a large skateboard park in its back property, covered, which is important in Portland because it rains half the year, and so called Skate Church. And it was dorky. Me and my friends all made fun of it.
Yeah, like these guys don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
Right.
but it was a awesome skateboard park.
Right. So who cares?
Yeah, so
We'll
it's
go
like
hang out
you
with the
pay
dorks.
$2 on Tuesday nights, and halfway through the night, they turn off the lights and make everybody sit down, and one of the staff guys gives a Jesus talk. And, which I kind of was familiar with.
Right. It's not completely new.
No.
Yeah.
For my friends it was. But
Right.
and then if you sat through the talk, you could skate the second half of the night. If you skipped, you had
You're
to come
out.
back next week, sit through the talk, and then you could skate. That was kind of like the agreement.
Hey, yeah.
And so I had been going, weekly to this park for 2 years. And the thing about the guys who ran it they were Jesus people, and so I could kind of hang with that because I'd grown up
you knew
around
enough,
that.
right?
But they were really good skateboarders. Like some of them were really talented. And then the most generous, nice people I'd ever met. And so these were the first impressions of like, wow, like that's a way of living as a human and following Jesus. And like, you're actually really cool. You're really good at skateboarding and you're really passionate about Jesus. So that was about a 2-year season where the Spirit was doing. And then I have real vivid memories of like going to party on the weekends, and I would be having these pangs of conscience of like, but like the thing that guy said at the talk at Skate Church last week, and like, what am I doing?
But entirely invisible to his vision. That guy. If I say, hey, tell me about this kid, he'd be like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that kid. I mean, he comes every Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, totally. No, you could ask Paul today, and he would say Tim knew how to like hang with the Christian thing, but he was doing his own thing. He could tell that. Yeah. So in the summer of '95, I was dating a girl who dumped me. I'd sprained my ankle, so I couldn't skate.
So shut down
for like 3 months, which is like prime, especially in the summer.
Oh yeah.
I was working at UPS, living in my parents' basement, and one of those guys from Skate Church called me and said, "Hey, let's go grab a burger before going to the park. I'll pick you up and we'll go to the park." And I was like, "Sweet, free dinner."
Yeah, why not?
And so he, at the Wendy's on 82nd and Gleason, which is right around the church from the park, he was a really good skateboarder. And so I respected him.
Yeah, that helps, right.
Yeah, and he, in a way that still I kind of marvel that I didn't turn off, but he just was like, "Man, I've kind of been observing. I know who your friends." It was exactly what you're saying. I know who your friends are now.
Yeah.
I know mostly what they're about and what they do.
Right.
So I pretty much know what you're doing.
Right.
And he was just like, I think you know a lot more about what you ought to be doing to respond to Jesus than you show any of us.
Wow.
And he just challenged me. He was like, "What are you doing with your life? And I think you need to make a decision about what to do with Jesus, because the stakes are going to start to get higher as you get into your 20s. And I don't know, Jay, somehow, it was like some August Tuesday night of 1995,
the penny drop.
Yes. And I went to Skate Church that night, and I listened, and I was like, I need to follow Jesus.
Wow.
And so I did. And so I made this I just started hanging out at the park. I would go there during the days because I would work a morning shift at UPS, and then I would come, and because they would have volunteer hours, and I would just come help build ramps or pull nails out of wood just to hang out with these guys.
Yeah.
And they just enveloped me into a new community, and it was amazing. And so they met on Thursday nights for a Bible study, which is effectively like a little church. It turned into a church years later. And that church community became, the incubator for my faith into my mid-20s.
Did it become pretty public pretty fast, or did it kind of live underground for a minute?
Yeah. Well, no, there's probably a couple months.
Right.
Where it's like I'd come to the...
Just act like
come on Tuesday night,
right.
And then I would see, that guy, and he'd be like, "Oh, sorry, man, I got really drunk over the weekend," and and he was just like, "Okay, so but he was really patient with me.
Yeah, what do you want to do about that?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yep.
Let's figure out how to make a different choice." And so yeah, but that was like a 3 or 4 month period, and then the guy who started it, Paul, asked me to give the Jesus talk to tell my story.
Now that's a big moment.
Yeah. And there was
because now I'm out. I'm in front of everybody.
That's exactly right. And if I do that, then certain friends will know, and that'll go through the grapevine or whatever. But I wanted to do that, so I did. And then I guess I was able to say something coherent and semi-compelling
enough that they were like, "That was pretty good."
Enough that they were like, "That was pretty good." And so Paul started meeting with me and reading the Bible. It would just simple. It'd be like, hey, let's read Galatians this week, and then go have breakfast and talk about it or something. And so he became my first kind of like mentor.
Yeah.
And he had a young family, so he was married and he had little kids, and I'm like watching him be that, but like as a follower of Jesus and a really good skateboarder, and I was like, wow, this is so that. Okay, so then he asked me to teach a Bible study for the junior high skateboarders.
Wow.
And I was like,
how would I do that? It's like some kind of magic. I don't know how to do that. Right, yeah.
So I had two friends that I'd gotten to know at the skate park. They had started following Jesus in the last year or two. And they had signed up for classes at a Bible college that was across the street from the skateboard park.
I love it.
Called Multnomah. And so I was talking with them and learning what they were learning. And then I was like, well, I guess if I'm going to start teaching something about the Bible to these kids, I could sign up for these classes.
Probably learn a couple things. Right. Totally. Yeah, why not? So, not going to cut into my UPS career track.
So I came home. Again, a conversation my parents will never remember. I wasn't...
Well, this is what I want to ask. Yeah. When did your parents go, wait a minute?
Yeah, I didn't come home and tell them, like, I met Jesus.
Isn't that great?
No, they could just tell I was hanging out with that crew a lot more.
Yeah.
So the conversation was when I came home and said, Mom and Dad, I think I want to sign up for classes at Multnomah Bible College so that I can teach these junior high kids about the Bible.
Wow.
And they were just like,
what?
First of all, college.
Yes, of any kind, right?
Much less. So they have a good story to tell.
Oh,
so for them, as they mark in their memory that night,
that's the moment.
Like 6 years later from the family meeting where I said I don't want to go. So it's a long, long window where they just loved me and prayed, and so. January 96 was my first semester. I started in the middle of the year. And I don't know, it's so hard to know, like, because also my brain, it was like 20, so brain development.
Right.
So I had now been not smoking pot for probably, 6-8 months now.
Right.
So I think my brain was clearing.
Yeah, it's healing. Right.
But I just, there were two teachers in particular that when I sat in their classes, I don't know, it was the most electrifying environment I'd ever been in, where it was fun, it was stimulating, and it was Bible, philosophy, culture. They were just wizards at like bringing the biblical story to life, ancient history, but like able to weave it together with pop music, music from pop culture and all this. And I just fell in love with biblical studies and theology, just because these two, Carl Kutz and Ray Lubeck. And so then it was 4.5 years of just...
Now you're in.
Yeah, I just was going to school, but lived with my parents, and then was super involved at the skate park.
Because you're starting to see early leadership kind of gifts. You're probably getting better at like thinking through the thing.
Yeah. Not maybe less on the leadership front, but more on just like the passion front.
Right.
Of like,
I just love this.
I love this. Huh. This is what matters. This somehow Jesus and Scripture and theology was introducing me to everything in the world. It was like my gateway to actually learn about the world. So like I learned about the history of Western civilization because I got interested in church history.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And then that's what motivated me to learn.
Totally.
And ancient, all of that stuff. So it's interesting because I know that a big part of Protestantism's history, especially in America, has had a big anti-intellectual or suspicion of intellectual.
Yep.
And it's just so, I know that exists, and I think I understand part of why it exists now, but it was so opposite of my experience.
Right.
Because for me, following Jesus became the gateway for me learning anything and everything.
Yeah.
And was like the reason why I wanted to start learning. So anyhow, those were great years, really great years.
And in those years, are you starting to form career thoughts like, I'm going to be a pastor, or I'm going to be like these skate church guys. Like, I'm going to be these guys, or I'm going to be...
Not necessarily career, but in terms of life direction.
Yeah.
I remember when I taught my first Thursday night to all of my peers in that community. I taught on the book of Exodus. And I did a theology of the Exodus.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, that's audacious. Yeah.
Anyway.
That's coming out of the gate hot. Yeah. That's not how to pray or, this is.
Yeah. It was so rad. I still have my notes from it. And, but all my friends were like so amped up and so encouraging.
Yeah.
And they were like, you should do that again sometime.
Yeah.
I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
I'll next it'll be Leviticus or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a positive feedback loop.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So more it was about when I read and learn a lot, I have fun. Mm-hmm. And then when I try and condense what I've learned and share it with my peers, they seem to learn a lot.
Yep.
And they are encouraging me to do that whole thing again.
Yep. They enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Yep. So I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
Like I was working at a spaghetti factory in the evenings.
You're out of the trucks.
Yeah,
That's good.
Out of the trucks.
Big win. Big win. Huge upgrade.
But totally. Anyway, yeah. So that was great. I was such a rich season.
Yeah.
I spent a summer in Papua New Guinea because there were like missions conferences.
Oh.
And at the school every year. And so they were like, hey, spend a summer like
somewhere else,
living, in somewhere where somebody's doing frontline Bible translation into new languages.
Wow.
And so I had a friend, actually my friend Gerald, who picked you up from the airport.
Yeah.
So I met him at Skate Church.
Really?
Yeah, I met Gerald when I was like a brand new follower of Jesus.
Great.
So he went and did one of these summers and came back, and he was a part of Skate Church, and I was hearing all about it, and I was like, oh, dude, follow Jesus to the ends of the earth, and like,
yeah,
I'll do that for a summer.
Let's go. Yeah.
So I came back from that summer deeply impacted. Like, I want to give my life to helping people understand the story of the Bible and fall in love with Jesus. So I signed up for Greek.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
A natural step.
Yeah.
And just loved it. I signed up with some friends. And then the next year I started Hebrew. And
just had an aptitude.
Yeah.
It's like a hidden...
Yeah. So now we're back to that thing where I discovered like, whoa, this is coming pretty easy.
Right. When you talk to anyone who moves through seminary, okay? Like anyone.
Yeah, totally.
It's the rare exceptions like, man. And then I took Hebrew and Greek, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
They're almost all going, I am dying. Like I am putting 100% effort in to get almost no yield. I'm barely surviving this.
Totally. Yeah.
But you're in the rare exception.
Yeah. I'm also like, I'm 20.
Right.
Not married.
Right.
I have lots of free time.
Yeah, I'm just doing it.
And I'm in a sub-community where my friends were all taking classes together.
Yeah.
And so, I did Greek and Hebrew, but with my friends.
Yeah.
And then we'd get out of class, like take a Hebrew quiz, and then I'd go give the Jesus talk at the skate park.
Right.
And then meet those kids.
Yeah, and then you hang out
for Bible
late
study.
that night and whatever.
Yeah.
And back at it.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what to say. It was a unique environment. And so I walked out from that experience in Multnomah, and I knew that I wanted to learn more. And so I knew I wanted to go to seminary, but it wasn't yet. I think the career thing was just dawning on me.
Like, I could do this. Yeah.
Or this is the thing you could do. I guess you could be a professor.
Right.
I'm kind of more nerdy than my friends who are going to go be pastors.
Right.
So I'll go to seminary. And so there was a seminary. I mean, it's 2 miles up from the house I grew up in, Western Seminary. And so I got to know one of those professors, and he took me out to lunch. I think he was kind of looking to kind of help expose me to the program.
Yeah.
So, I went to seminary here in Portland, and so I'm missing a huge event, which was I met Jessica in the middle of my junior year.
Okay.
And so we were dating all my last year at Multnomah.
And she's studying similar stuff. We're all in all the
Yeah,
things.
everybody at Multnomah did a major in Bible.
Okay.
And then she did a minor in Greek.
Oh, okay. So right.
And our first conversation was her approaching me to ask about the Greek program. And I was like, is this...
I'll tell you anything you want to know.
A pretty lady who came up to me to talk about the Greek program. I like this woman a lot.
So great.
So, so she finished at Multnomah after I did, and then we got married. And then it was, I was first married and started seminary. And our apartment was 2 miles up that road.
Wow.
And there you go. It was great.
And then again, you take to seminary. It works.
I just loved it.
Like, I love this.
Oh, yeah.
Because that doesn't always happen.
That's true. No, that's true.
I mean, people hit a wall. They're like, I thought I loved this, but...
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to keep going to biblical studies. I had my Hebrew teacher and three of those friends that I started Greek and Hebrew with, they all caught the bug too. So they all went off to a program at UW, University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Yeah.
To Hebrew.
I know that program, yeah.
Hebrew and Semitic Studies.
Yeah.
So I've got 3 friends there. I wanted to do more church history, theology, understand the whole landscape of Christian theology.
Right.
And keep rocking as many like Greek and Hebrew classes as I could. And so that was a really great season, and I got to do some more preaching, and I pity the people who had to hear those sermons. But what I noticed at seminary was I'm more of a nerd than most of the people I'm meeting. And by that I just mean like I just had this kind of obsession for a more academic pursuit, and if I had a question, I would go live in the library for a day and get all the journal articles
and love it. Like, this
related
is
to that
fun.
question, and I thought it was so fun.
Right. Whereas other people are like, I guess I got to go figure this out.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Right. So that was seminary. So by the time I finished that, it was a 2-year program. I was very clear, like, PhD or bust.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do this. We don't have kids yet. Let's go for it.
Let's keep going. Right.
So we moved to Wisconsin, and I joined that same program.
Right.
That my friends then were just graduating from with a master's, and then I stayed there for a master's and a PhD. That was a 7-year program.
7 years in Madison.
Yeah. We were there for 9, but 7 years in school.
Wow.
In that program.
Wow. It's a cool city, but that's a long
great
time.
Town.
Yeah, 9 years.
Well, it was 3 years of coursework. Then I did my last class year in Jerusalem. And then we moved back to Madison and then 3 more years of just researching and writing my dissertation.
So you're like 30.
Oh, yeah, I turned 30 in Jerusalem. I celebrated my 30th birthday in Jerusalem.
So 30, so then you're 32 at the end of those 9 years, something like that?
Let's see.
33?
I graduated in 2010, and I'm 46 right now.
Yeah, 33.
I was 33 when I finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 33, now you have like all the school known to man.
Yeah. I'd been going to school for 13 years.
Yes. From a guy that like didn't care about school.
Yeah, totally.
The lights turn on.
Yeah.
Now you're on the escalator.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep taking every escalator.
Yeah.
But now you're kind of at the top of the escalator.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, I'm a professor now.
Okay. So about halfway through that program, I started doing student teaching there at the university. So I'm teaching Intro to Judaism to like 200 incoming freshmen.
Wow.
And they could care less.
Because they need it as a prereq for some other
There's
thing.
like 5 people who cared in the front row.
Right.
And this was right when instant messenger chat began and laptops were affordable enough. So everybody has laptops. Everybody's typing. And I'm thinking like, oh, this is great. They're taking notes and it's like, no, they're like
talking to whoever.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no. So I loved the environment for what I got to learn and study as a relational environment.
Right.
I got an accurate picture, I think, of what it would be like to be a religious studies prof at a university.
Yep.
And I just thought, like, this is not the environment where my passion for all of this was, got fired up. And I don't think the environment where I feel called to carry out a teaching ministry.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I'm most of the way through this program.
Right.
And I love it, so I'm going to finish. But maybe it's the pastor, teacher guy.
Yeah.
So we were really involved at a church that we were attending. And so I offered to teach a class on the theology of the Pentateuch.
That's cool. I mean, and they're like, sure.
They were like, my wife worked there. This is key.
Okay,
my wife had been working there. She put in a good word for me.
Right.
I was known as Jessica's husband.
Right. Perfect.
Because I was in the library all the time.
Right.
And so they were like, well, Jessica's husband is a Bible nerd and he wants to teach class. So what was rad was, it was a university-focused church close to campus. So it was like lots of grad students and lots of faculty in all the different schools that went to the church. And so that class on theology of the Pentateuch was like really sharp people. And it was so fun.
Yeah.
I just had so much fun. And so as soon as that was done, I was like, can I do it?
I should keep doing this.
Yeah, one on the Gospel of John or something.
Yeah.
And so I realized, like, this is the spot.
Yeah.
Like,
it's in church.
Yes.
Taking, again, you're kind of back in skate church. I'm going to take all this stuff I've learned, consolidate it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
And teach.
Yep. And I think something about the skate church experience formed me in a way where it's like, if I can't say it in a simple way so that a high schooler can get it, then I haven't done enough work yet.
Yep.
And so I think that instinct in me, the communicator instinct. And so anyway, so I just started teaching a lot at the church. And then it was kind of one of those, I was giving so much time to it that as I was finishing my degree, they offered to bring me on.
Yeah, we got to hire
team.
this guy somehow. Right, yeah.
So that was my first kind of role on a pastoral staff team.
That's cool.
Yeah, Blackhawk Church in Madison. Evangelical Free Church.
Huh, cool.
Yeah. So, and that's where I kind of really like preached. Learned how to preach.
Yeah.
And there was like a little mentoring group with the lead pastor where he was mentoring young preachers. And so I joined that cohort, and he invited me to start preaching, and there you go. So I was there I worked there for 3 years, but was kind of like an unpaid for another 3 years before that.
Right.
So it was an amazing environment.
Yeah. And then how, you come back to Portland to plant a church or work?
Oh, no. So we had our first son.
Okay.
And a little bit before that, I'd finished school and knew that I wanted to come back to Portland. And I should say it differently. I've had very few of these experiences, but I was prayer walking one day, and it wasn't anything even like a voice. It was just like a Portland. And I had been very happy there.
Yeah.
For, by that time, 8 years. But it's just kind of this thing.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to my friend, a number of friends. One of them was Gerald, again, who picked up from the airport.
Yeah.
And he was right then coming back from serving as a missionary in Spain and was a part of a church that was in the suburbs that was going to plant a church here in Portland.
Yep.
It used to be called Solid Rock. Now it's called Bridgetown.
Yep.
And so I asked if he could help me just meet some pastors here in Portland, just to kind of figure out
something I could do.
Is there something I could do? And so through lots of connections, I ended up meeting a guy named Josh White, who had just a year earlier planted a church called Door of Hope, right here, like
in your neighborhood,
half a mile right down there.
Wow.
3 blocks from where I grew up, like the building. And I remember that we visited, and it was like all these people from skate church, but like we're all adults now.
So all the history comes back. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Western Seminary is right up the street, and I had maintained my relationships there, and so worked out a pastoral role at Door of Hope and adjunct professor at Western Seminary.
Wow.
And moved back home, and my parents were close, and so that was great. So that was 11 years ago.
Okay.
And then I had a friend named John Collins, who I met at the skate park.
Really?
Like way back when. Yeah. He had moved down from Seattle to Multnomah, John Collins. and he volunteered at the skate park. And we were both interns at the skate park for a time, and we met then, and just began a friendship. And he was somebody who had grown up around church, but was super inquisitive, And I always appreciated how honest and raw his questions were. He tended to ask like the third or fourth question where people stop at one or two. And so we had maintained our friendship because the women that we dated and married, they were friends from college.
That helps.
And so when we moved back to town, we would see each other, our families. And he, while I was in school, had started a business making short animated explainer videos, mostly for tech clients. And was about 5 years into that business. But he, and I had kept, even over email, remember when you used to have theological dialogue over email? Long emails?
Totally.
Don't do that anymore.
No.
At least I don't.
No, I don't. Somebody might, but they're probably younger.
We had that over the years. And so we were trusted conversation partners.
Right.
And so he was at a place in his life with the Bible. He was down for Jesus. Bible's a struggle. And he's like, and I went to Bible college.
Right.
Like I should know what to do. So he asked if I would work with him to help make some videos, some Bible explainer videos.
Wow.
And so I think
just like on his own, like here's a project. I think
he's like,
help.
I have this animation studio
right.
As a side project. Would you be interested in this? I think I have some ideas about how we could get it funded and just explore making a few of these to help people understand the Bible.
Let's see.
And I was like, sweet. So I came back with a list of 100 videos.
Wow.
Like if I was trying to think of it like a curriculum.
Yeah.
Like, what do I wish I had?
Right.
As going to skate church, trying to figure out the Bible or whatever. And so that was ambitious, but we started, let's just pick 2.
Right. Two's a good start.
And start with that. So.
And were they as tight when you first did it? Was it like, were they... Because what always is remarkable to me about the work you do, like you do a lot of incredible things. The thing that I find most amazing is how tight it is.
Yeah.
Like 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 12 minutes. And it frankly is horribly intimidating as a communicator in that I've got 30 and I feel like I do, or 25.
Yeah, sure.
I feel like I do a tenth of what you're doing in 12, which makes me deeply insecure. But I know that in order to work in those tight windows, it's way more work, frankly, to get it that.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I mean, so I wonder.
Yeah.
So did you start with that as an image?
So, John was 5 years in to a rhythm of go spend a day with client, 2 days with clients.
Yeah.
Learn everything about their product.
And just chop it all the way down.
Yeah. So he had developed this kind of craft of getting to the essence of a thing, learning what needs to, get put on the cutting room floor.
Yeah. That's a helpful thought, but we're not putting it here.
Interesting, but not the essence.
Yeah.
And once you've got the essence, then you can help somebody have that light bulb turn on moment. Oh, the company was called Epiphio, for epiphany through video.
Wow.
So you're trying to help people
see it.
Have the moment.
Yep.
And so I think, but the reason why I ended up starting that business is because it's innate in him.
Yeah.
It's just the kind of human he is.
It's a very unique skill.
It is. And you can go look at the video library of things that he worked on before. It's everything from like inflation to leap year to how to survive the robot apocalypse. Right? All these videos out there that he made.
Yeah.
And so I learned from him.
Yeah.
And am learning every project we work on, the art of taking big, complex ideas and whittling them down to
you're leaving great stuff on the floor. Yeah. Every time you're like, but that...
as a preacher too, you do that. It's just you have to do a little less.
Yes.
Than if you're going for 5 minutes.
Oof. That is... And when did you... As you're in that project then, when's the first time you're like, I think we're doing something right now. This is a thing.
Yeah,
this isn't just a fun thing we do while I'm doing this. And
so we worked for a year, and he had raised some money from kind of just relational network, some people who invested to give us runway to just hire some artists to work on the first 2. And then we created a nonprofit business entity. I spilled my coffee on the paperwork the morning we were sending it in. I'll never forget that. And then he had come up with this model of not using Kickstarter, but just creating, if we did a nonprofit but created our own crowdfunding mechanism, he thought we could do it because Kickstarter take the cut.
Yep.
So anyway, he's the entrepreneur. So he figured all that stuff out.
Yeah.
And I was...
You had vision for it. You're like, we could do this.
Yeah. And I was like, it'd be a fun side project.
Yeah, I'm doing this other stuff anyway. So
yeah. But it was all like, let's just make some videos and just be a little side passion. And with the idea that we'll know if we're going to be able to make any more, because we'll just make a little request on the end of the videos saying, hey, we want to make some more.
Right.
You can help us.
Are you interested?
Yep.
Right.
So the response was really amazing. The day we launched our first 2 videos was May 2014, and then we raised, enough money to make the next video within like 48 hours.
Wow.
And we were like, sweet.
I guess this is a thing now.
Let's do another one.
Wow.
So it just kind of was, it wasn't ever like viral in that sense, but it's just been the slow, steady, like the next thing's covered, and then you do that thing and release it, and then, the next 2 things are covered now. And it's kind of been like that. So by a year and a half, some really generous people approached us and said, if you could do a video for every book of the Bible in a year, if money's not an issue, would that ever be possible?
Could it be done? Right.
I was like, whoa. How about 18 months? And so that launched what we call the Read Scripture Project, or they're just the book overviews. And so that I shifted to just half-time at the church and then half-time working on the video projects. And then, because the goal was to build a full-time art team, because that's the most expensive part. Yeah. Is the hours required.
It's labor-intensive,
of the designers. So we finished that. In 18 months, we made a video about every book of the Bible. And then the year that we released those, along with a Read the Bible in a Year program with an app that some other friends help us develop, it just all kind of came together in that year, 2016. Yeah. Just put a lot more people learned about what we were doing. Yep. And so it allowed us to create a community of monthly supporters, patrons, and to create a kind of budget stability. Yep. And then John and I both moved over full-time in 2017.
And so this is a super technical question, but it is a kind of a calling question. So it'll sound technical, but it's really calling. I'm sure a bunch of people tried to convince you to monetize this a certain way.
Oh, sure. Well,
I mean,
it more went like this.
Okay.
John had that business that he started. It was very successful. And he found himself in his late 20s and early 30s making a lot of money in the tech world. And he reached out to some mentors to figure out, like, what do you do if you follow Jesus and you happen to find yourself making a lot of money?
Good question.
And so he connected with some people and mentors in this organization called Generous Giving.
I know those guys, yeah.
And he just met some mentors that really turned his whole paradigm upside down.
And they do.
And really remarkable. And so he had been so shaped by that theology of generosity that he wanted this project to be started in a way that it wouldn't ever tempt us to make money off it.
That is a very hard thing to do.
In other words, not that he didn't want to be able to be compensated.
Sure, exactly.
But that we didn't build it as a for-profit so that those interests would ever...
They're not the driving influences, which is it's a harder decision to make later.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an easier decision to make earlier. Yep. So without the influence of those folks, because what you guys do is really, really good. But part of what enables it to be as widespread as it is the fact that you're like, hey, this isn't like a pay-for-play game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We would love your help. We'd love your support.
Yeah,
There's
totally.
ways that what you do enables us to do what we do. And if you don't, this is available to you.
Yeah, it's given us the ability to make the content that we feel like needs to exist.
Yes.
Which sometimes the market demand can point in that direction, but sometimes the market is not demanding what people actually need.
Totally.
And so I was kind of convinced that what people need to help them unlock the Bible isn't quite anything that's out there right now. But this medium could be really helpful. And
and what strikes me in your story too, which is parallel but not the same as, is you're responding to real need. You're responding to real fruit. The amount of people I know in any business venture, but definitely in ministry.
You're trying to stir it up.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
We're creating a thing. So they're going around and saying, like, I'll make fun of church planners because they're easy to make fun of. I'm a church planner, so I can do it. So it's the, do you not know how godless the wasteland of Denver is?
Yeah.
And if you could just support us to do these 5 things and we would be able to blah, 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 and the world could change and whatever.
Yeah.
You don't live in Denver. You've not actually done anything in Denver.
Yeah.
You're not, honestly, probably most of the pastors in Denver aren't necessarily sure they want you there. So there's a problem.
Yeah.
And, right out of the gate.
Yeah, sure.
And it's all this sort of like, if I can have, then I will. As opposed to, look at all that's happening.
Yeah, and where we try to lead with is like, here's a bunch of cool stuff we made.
Yes.
Because a bunch of people were generous.
Yep.
Is any of this helpful to you?
And it turns out it is. So it starts feeding on itself in a certain way, which is, in my opinion, the best way that ministry works. And one of the greatest impediments to that is if you've built a financial model
Yeah, sure.
that disables you from that.
Yeah.
That's a real problem. But you guys, and I don't know if that was sovereign, that was wisdom, that apparently you had mentors, and you have certain kinds of talents that come together.
Yeah.
That's a miracle.
Yeah. No, every part of the project feels like an orchestration of
no doubt
something that the Spirit had in mind that we had no clue.
And then you said something at the beginning, which was a teaser.
Oh, yes.
For now.
Yeah.
Which is somewhere in here, the kind of weird, I think I was healed in my back as a kid
totally.
thing is sort of in the history. You're encountering, a whole new way of life with Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm also fascinated in that the academic space you're in can often, and I'm not, please don't hear me saying this negatively, I'm just observing a thing, can knock sort of that vital faith out of people.
Sure.
There's something about the academics, but not always, obviously, when we're sitting here, but it can knock this sense of like wonder, of an inner life with God, connected to church. What we would classically just understand as people that just sort of love and follow Jesus, something about the space of inquiry and intellect and academia. I don't know, makes them cold or skeptical or sad or frustrated with,
Yeah, oftentimes they're taking a deep dive into complex questions around the Bible and theology and the complexity of the history of the Bible and of the Jesus movement. And there's a lot of complexity. And so being honest about the issues that you discover through academic inquiry into these things surfaces, and the communities where you can talk, learn, trade ideas, be honest about how what you're learning makes you feel. It's hard to find these environments. And so a lot of people who began with a passion for following Jesus find their faith squelched.
Yeah, kind of fall in a hole somewhere in there.
Not everybody. Didn't happen to me. But
obviously,
it happened to many of my colleagues through grad school. So there's lots of different reasons for that. But no, so I think I would say that didn't happen to me. But at every step of my education, I was connected to a really healthy church community.
Yeah,
where I was discovering things about myself and then being able to contribute in a way that gave me life and directly connected to what I was learning. So it was kind of like I just never had that struggle.
Yeah.
Until the last couple of years, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
So that's fast forwarding. So when I began to transition to do the Bible Project with more and more of my time, when I stepped away from leadership at Door of Hope Church Community, and that was an amazing journey. It was essentially the first kind of 5 years of the church. The first 5 years of most church plants I know of have a lot going on.
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy.
Everybody's doing everything. Right?
Everybody's doing everything.
Yep.
And so I discovered a lot about myself in those years, which is why I stepped away from the word leadership earlier as we were talking.
That. Yep.
And so I think I just learned when it comes to organizational leadership, managing leadership, these are skills and gifts.
Yep.
And it's just not how I'm wired.
Right.
I can contribute to leading something through teaching related to the Bible, but don't ask me to actually run something because it won't run.
Yep.
It will fall apart.
Yep.
And I learned that by being in charge of things that fell apart.
Yeah. Well, and you can prop them up with certain kinds of gifts and momentum.
Totally, yeah.
But that internal work of getting the right people in the right places in the right order.
Yeah, you got it.
And that can bring joy to people, as it turns out.
Yeah, that's totally right.
But it doesn't to everybody.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, so when I stepped down from leadership at Door of Hope, it was such a rich season that we were there. And so we just were attending the church. But it became clear that I kept getting pulled back into leadership conversations.
Yeah.
And so I think we sensed, and also for kind of where our kids were at, was I think we feel like we need to find a different church community for this next season of parenting and family. And so I attended an Anglican church for about a year. I was ready to go all in. My kids were not.
Okay, there you go. Well, that makes a big difference. Yeah.
They had just a very fledgling one class for all ages thing for kids, which meant most weeks they're sitting through the hour, 15-minute liturgy.
Yep.
And they're 6 and 8. You know, not so much.
Not into it. Yeah.
So that didn't go well. And then we were attending just a church around the corner from our house because it was around the corner from our house.
We can just walk there. Right. Totally.
Yeah, Mennonite church.
Yeah.
And it was actually really a great experience. And then COVID. And then, so we kind of found ourselves a bit high and dry. And that church community just kind of shuttered. Like they didn't have online church.
Right.
It just wasn't a thing. And we hadn't gotten to know very many people yet. And so COVID was, for our family, we kind of just had a small network of relationships with some other families. But something happened in that season where I will just attribute it to, I think because while I was at Bible Project, and it's such a life-giving, fun project for me, it doesn't put me into the lifeblood of a local church community where what I'm learning and teaching is connected to these people as we follow Jesus together in this place. You know, it's a
difference.
It's a difference. So I get to teach and I get to learn and study a lot, but then speaking to microphones and you know, and make videos. But it's not like we're woven into Bible Project isn't my church.
Yeah.
And so there was that, and then I think, Jay, what I can say now is I hadn't cultivated the long-term life habits related to prayer that could really sustain a vital connection to Jesus through my adult years.
Yeah.
I think being a pastor,
it kind of carries you in a certain way.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I'm praying a lot, I'm depending on God a lot. I'm and like, what do we do? Oh, that family fell apart, and how are we going to help this couple? And that, their spouse died, or what? And it's just, you're praying a lot. And
I got to teach this week, so I should
teach
do this thing.
So my prayer life was all wrapped around doing this stuff. And the moment nobody was asking me to do that anymore, and I just get to study and then write and work with creative people, and I pray for the project.
Right.
But I just found...
It's different.
So it's kind of weird, but I found myself in this long season of like, I'm pretty sure God exists.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know because I guess I actually don't talk to him as much as I used to or think that I ought to. And
it feels cold. Right.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. Yeah. That's where I was. And about a year and a half ago, just a number of very small things began to shift. I think one of them was I just started a habit of waking up every day and lighting a candle. Somehow the candle helps. Feels ridiculous, but somehow the candle helps.
Whatever, right.
And at the encouragement of my dad and a spiritual director that I started seeing, kind of like just I'm looking for help here, was like I'm in my early 40s, and I feel like I don't know how to relate to Jesus as a person, like a relationship. He's invisible. So how do you relate to an invisible person? And I needed to learn how to pray. And it felt weird, like this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, but I guess so.
And that takes guts to have to admit.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you don't want to admit that to yourself.
Yeah.
Or anyone else, for sure.
Totally. And it's not like I feel so connected to something bigger in the presence of God when my Bible's open and when I'm thinking about learning and thinking about how to communicate what I'm learning. But when it's just like me and God and my life and desires and needs, like that had kind of like the line was...
Here's a gap.
Yeah. So I just started this daily practice of not reading my Bible first thing in the morning, which is a big thing for me because I'd been doing that for 2 decades. And just starting with silence, with my hands open, and just asking God to speak to me in a way that I can feel and hear it and understand. And so I just started doing that every day. And nothing felt like nothing was happening.
Yeah, silence, right?
Yeah, totally. But, parenting has a way of putting you in situations where you're not in control, like I put my parents in. And so I started listening to my boys, and as I'm trying to tune in to how they see the world, I began to pray with them at bedtime and pray with them about the things that they cared about, which was like, so-and-so called me like an idiot today, or so-and-so says I suck at kickball and he won't let me on his team. Right. And it's like, so let's pray about that. And there was the season of a few months where it was really, this is so ridiculous, Jay, but this is like, we would pray about something, and then like within the next couple days,
it would change, right?
Something would happen,
right,
for my kids,
right.
And it was weird because it was like somehow I'm praying,
right,
with my kids, and they're fully experiencing God as answering their prayers. Yeah, and I'm sitting here going, is that what's actually happening? Or,
yeah.
I was all like, doubting it.
Yeah, totally. I can see it all. Because you're going, I'm doing this thing over here.
Yeah.
Nothing seems to be happening.
Yeah.
Doing this other thing seems a little silly, frankly.
Yeah.
But there's stuff happening.
Yeah.
Am I projecting that? You do. I mean, you're a bright guy, so you start to do all these things in your own head. Torturing yourself, yeah.
And so I remember the week I just allowed myself to trust and believe that there's actually somebody else on the other end of the line, that they are responding to me and answering my request to speak to me in a way I can understand, but through my kids.
That's right.
And when I could just let myself feel like that's what I was experiencing, it was like, whoa, is that what's possible? Maybe that's how it could work.
Yeah.
And then you could actually feel like you're relating to somebody.
Totally. Maybe this is how that actually, I thought whatever I thought.
Yeah.
But this is how it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. So one big thing was, as here in Portland, which was slower to reopen things after COVID, was we really wanted to engage in a church community for our family. And so we began to pray a lot about that. And we made a list of where do we have the group of friends that we have the most history with that are the most in one place.
Yeah.
So that we're not starting from scratch. And so all roads led to a church community here. in Portland that my friend Gerald had helped start called Bridgetown. And so we, made some phone calls, and we were just like, hey, we want to
show up.
We want to show up, and we're going to be there, and we'd love to see you. And so...
So wait, so let me make an observation, because you probably wouldn't see this quickly, but it strikes me. You are the Bible Project guy. You have bajillion years of study theologically, Greek and Hebrew. You've helped plant a church. So you have very...
Well, Door of Hope had already started.
Yeah, but you're
first
helping.
Year.
You're in the middle of the mix, is my point. You're not an observer. You're in it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you have this wealth of information, knowledge, probably specific thoughts on how things should work, I imagine, if you've been... Okay, so all of that's in the bank. And when you say, hey, we should really figure out how to be in a church, what you didn't say was, what matches the way I think the theological thing should work? What matches the way I think that church should be? You went the other way around. You said, where are the humans that I feel like I could live my life with? I mean, most people, when they quote unquote church shop, okay, they taste all the Sunday soup,
I see.
Right?
Yeah,
so they move around and they go,
interesting.
I like this worship band. I like that building. Whatever.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
And it's sort of this scorecard of things. I'm not saying you didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure there's, if they'd been completely out to lunch in one of those categories, you'd be out. But what you just said is by far the number one piece of counsel I give anyone thinking about this. That's why it strikes me. And every time they're like, what? Especially ministry-minded people, is they're in sort of a machine of thinking. And for me, the relationships and the commitment to one another, within, of course, some broad parameters, is the whole deal.
Yeah. Yes.
Like without that, it can be the best everything else. And so what?
Yep.
Like these aren't people I'm going to live my life with.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to sit in at their kitchen table. They're not going to sit at my kitchen table. I'm not. That's a real problem. But you have all the tools and the thoughts in the world, and you chose to go around it that way. When I say all that to you, does that strike you as like strange?
Well,
I mean, not strange in a bad way.
Yeah.
I already tipped my hand. I think that's the right way for what it's worth.
Yeah, totally.
But,
yeah. I guess it's just where we are at.
Yeah.
And I think given that we had
the hunger
made a transition, had been at a couple church communities that we were very meaningful for us, but didn't feel like every member of our family can engage here and be cared about. And so we were at that point, and then COVID. Yeah. So at this point, this has been multiple years before we've really felt like we're a part of a church community. And that itself felt weird. Like, man, I didn't mean for this to happen, but it's where we are.
So many people, especially out of COVID.
Yes, totally.
Like the amount of people that are like, I love the Lord. Somehow I just sort of fell out in a weird way. And maybe it wasn't the same as you, but the weaknesses or the underdeveloped components of their faith are so present to them.
Yes.
They can just see it.
Yeah, Jay.
And it's embarrassing or it's awkward.
So during that season, John and I started working on a series of projects. One of them was crawling through the Sermon on the Mount for something that we are still working on. We'll actually start releasing at the end of this year.
Cool.
So I'm like immersed in the Sermon on the Mount, sitting in this room, having really honest conversations with John about life and following Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount. And like this is in the season where we still weren't a part of a church family yet. And I would all the time just being like, is this just a bunch of nice ideas to me? Like, I don't have the community where I'm working this out with my family and my life. Like, I can't do this. I can't actually follow Jesus without a larger circle around me. I won't. I'll say I am,
Yeah.
And I will in a very select part of my life.
Right.
But will I actually be challenged in loving relationships to get outside my comfort zone and be exposed to people, stories, ways of following Jesus that don't come naturally to me?
Yeah.
And I can't do that.
Yeah.
We tried it as a family. Like, it didn't work.
Well, yeah, and if it's not going to work for you, you're immersed in the right conversations with the right kind of people in a way that really helps people.
Yep. Yeah.
If that isn't working because I need a community, I'd have a hard time thinking of who else it would work for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
So that church community has been a huge gift to our family. It's also a community that's been on a journey of trying to discover what does historic Christian orthodoxy in a Protestant kind of Anglican liturgical form, but that also is charismatic and open to the presence and gifts of the Spirit. That's where our church is at, pursuing that in a very intentional way. And so I found myself, Jay, having these experiences of God's presence and hearing God speak to me in prayer in ways that I've never had experiences like this before. And the most dramatic form that it took was last summer. I developed a sore throat that turned into a terribly painful swollen throat. And we had left to get on a boat to go camping on the state park island in the San Juan Islands. So that was a terrible camping trip.
Right. You're like, this is...
But I'm waking up and I feel like I can't talk normally. My throat's swollen. So I go to urgent care as soon as we get back on the mainland. And the guy's like, dude, you have a abscess, which just means a huge inflated, swollen set of cells in the back of your throat that's closing your throat. You need to get back to Portland and have surgery. I mean, wow, this is your situation. So I'm like, oh my, and it's excruciating pain. So get back to Portland, get the surgery scheduled. We had to cancel a dinner with some friends from church. And when we told them the reason, they were totally understanding. And then they called back and they were like, we feel like God just told us to come over to your house and pray that you would be healed. So this is not a normal part of my life.
I guess so, yeah.
But I'm just like, sure.
Hard to say no, really.
Yeah, totally. So they came over and prayed for my throat. And so I went to bed that night, woke up the next morning. My throat still hurts like crazy, and the appointment's at 11. And so I was playing Lego with my kids, trying to distract myself from the fact that I'm about to go have sharp instruments poked in the back of my throat to drain this. I mean, it's just, gross. It was really a gross scenario. And I get up to go get my keys and put my shoes on to go. And I don't know what to tell you, Jay. My throat, I felt it. It changed. Like it was swollen, like a third shut. Well, it's a little more gross because all of a sudden it became clear to me there was a bunch of stuff in my mouth.
Wow.
But it didn't hurt. And so I had to go to the bathroom and work that out.
Yeah.
And then I got in the car and went to the doctors. And, they checked me in and they're, looking and they're just like, we've got nothing to do here. Like, wow, your body took care of it. And so then I just sat with that, going home, and it's just like, I think I was healed.
Yeah.
Why? What was that about?
That's so good. That's so great.
One of my friends at church had invited me to come kind of talk about this rediscovery of prayer in my life at a conference that was happening at our church. And so I felt like I needed to tell the story.
This just happened,
of just my journey with prayer. Not about my throat, but just about my journey with prayer.
Right.
And so I did that. I gave a talk at a conference here that was being held at our church. I gave it once at the conference. Then I gave it a week later just for the people at our church. And there I told the story of my throat. It's kind of one of the things that God surprised me with. And there was a woman who came up to me afterwards, and I told the story, and she said, I don't know if you've made this connection yet, but she's like, you taught me the Hebrew word for soul. Podcast, you made video about it. It's nephesh. And she said, what you taught me was that the most literal meaning of the Hebrew word nephesh is throat. Because it's, in other words, nephesh is the Hebrew word. It literally means throat. It came to be metaphorically a way to refer to the whole person by referring to the most vital part of the body for air to blow in and out. So that's why the verb, the noun is nephesh, but the verb nafash means to breathe. So she said, but it means soul refers to the whole person. And she said, I think that God healed your nephesh as a sign to show you that he is healing your whole nephesh. And I was like, that's exactly right.
Wow.
That's exactly right. God has been healing my soul. And I just was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
What was that about? I think that's right. So I really think that's what it was about, Jay. I think I experienced a biblical healing sign on my body as a way of God communicating to me that he wants to reach out to me in a way I can feel. I've felt it and can understand. And there's a whole bunch of other things that go along with that, related to friendships that I've made at the church and ways of what God is up to in my life. But it's been a season of spiritual renewal for my whole family. And my kids are engaging Jesus in ways that I couldn't have helped facilitate if it was just me. But other families, other pastors at church, and it's just, I can't emphasize enough that I could have followed Jesus kind of.
Right.
But the richness of a healthy church community, it's not perfect.
Sure.
But
it's still humans.
But it's what we needed. So that's personally, and the way that's bookended with that story of healing all the way back when I was a kid, and that's just felt like a really precious gift from the last year. And so anyway, it's been a really special year and a half.
Well, and you know enough about our tribe to know.
Yeah, totally.
That stuff gets us excited.
Well, I was actually I was excited to know that we would have time to linger.
Right.
Because you told me that's what this conversation was going to be about.
Yeah.
And so I was excited to be able to share all this with you.
Oh, man.
Because we haven't talked about this.
No.
As we've gotten to know each other, we tend to talk about other stuff.
Yeah, we got things we're trying to do. Yeah. But I've heard, I saw that talk. I probably had 50 people write me and say, "Did you see this thing that Tim's talking about?" And I remember being here with you when we were filming for the other thing and feeling really led to pray for you. And with Caleb, like, man, this is an incredible guy. And I can just see the Holy Spirit moving toward him in a very, like, almost physical way. I remember, I don't know if you remember, but I remember saying, like, I think there's something about to happen for you. So, of course, I didn't tell anybody that. But then some of my friends are like, "Oh, you did this thing with Tim. Did you see this thing he's doing?" So I've been deeply encouraged. And then I'm here to be at your church.
Yes.
I'll be teaching tomorrow night on the Holy Spirit, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, totally.
And the next night. At Sunday services. So like, if you were to tell, so I want you to imagine you're talking to, Tim, who's like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like, I feel cold, frozen, confused. I don't know how to be connected to community. I mean, there's the way you described the sort of confluence of experiences and events, and the fact that your mind works really well. I do love the Bible. So the story isn't, and I found myself doing cocaine And,
Yeah, sure.
Like it isn't like...
Yeah. Or just whatever, playing video games and ditch the Jesus thing.
Yeah, you're not like devastated.
No.
But there's something not right.
Yeah, something missing.
Yeah, so say about, what would you want to say to, I mean, if you could even talk to yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of it is that I don't feel like I did anything. I feel like something happened to me that I wished would happen and thought could maybe happen, but probably it's not the way it's going to go. But maybe, so I'll stay open to it. Yeah. It was more like that.
Yeah, that's more than, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something to saying, I mean, you said you did the little things you knew how to do. I'm like lighting a candle and sitting awkwardly.
Yeah, totally.
I'm choosing to stay connected to my kids and praying for them because I don't know, I guess that's what they want to do. I'm going to choose to connect with some folks who I think have some kind of life in them that maybe I'll live my life with. Each of those little things, to your point, don't make anything happen.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not like, if A plus B equals C. However, that attitude of the heart, the choice to just do something that opens me in some way to a way of life with God, to see that desperation isn't, it's not bad. What I also love when I hear you talking is you're not self-condemning in that. People do that, right?
Yeah.
They start into like what's wrong with me, or they project it. This whole thing's a joke.
Yeah.
You were more inquisitive. How do I?
I will say, I did fully engage this on a brain level. I began to become aware of patterns in my own thinking where I would be surprised, like, whoa, what's that? Like, whatever mental instinct. Related to all I can say is I'm a child of late modern Western West Coast American secular culture. And I just started to read, of course, in the area of trying to understand what has happened to Western culture, culturally, religiously, politically, economically, to end up with what we have here in the 21st century America. So authors like Charles Taylor, A Secular Age, Tom Holland, Dominion, authors like James K.A. Smith, everything.
Yes, wonderful.
And it's like I began to realize that I really have adopted a lot of secular materialist, when I say not consumerist, although that's true too.
Right.
But materialist, like material reality is the only reality. Not consciously, but subconsciously.
Yes.
And so I really had a bunch of mental habits that were just undermining any like realistic, believable feelings that I could have about my faith.
Yeah.
But I have a really robust historical education in where the Bible came from and like why I think it's reasonable.
Yep.
But I had this almost like a cross currents in my thinking. And so I really have had to read a lot to try and understand the history of modern secularism.
Right.
And reading more in classical theism in church history than ever before. So a big part of this, Jay, and this is important because I know I'm not alone in this, is that I actually had to do some intellectual work that wasn't about apologetics. It was about, is a theistic view of the world actually reasonable?
Reasonable, that's right.
And coherent.
Yes.
And I found myself reading these philosophers, David Bentley Hart, Clark Norris, Edward Feser, and like, I was like, oh my gosh, not only do I want to believe this is true, I think it's actually true.
It's true, yeah, that's right.
I think it's actually, it's actually reasonably, persuasively true.
Yeah, it gives an account of reality.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Now, is it uncontestable? Of course not. But what is?
Right.
So that's crucially important. I don't want to say it was all feelings. This was all, but the point is that it was happening in tandem.
Yeah.
And it created the environment, like with my kids, where saying, I think God's answering my kids' prayers wasn't like, but really, that's impossible.
Right.
But to be like, no, I think that could actually be more real than any thing that I think is real.
Yes.
And that's been another piece. So, it's been a season, middle age, for me and my wife in very different ways, has been a season of deep integration of these parts of our lives that have felt kind of out of sync.
Yep.
And being a part of a local church, for me, has been really crucial.
Yes.
Absolutely crucial. And in ways that I'm appreciating. I knew already, but I'm appreciating in a new way. Yeah. And the reality of how our habits, when it comes to prayer and spiritual formation, it truly is about habit formation. And I'm not likely to hear God directing, speaking, leading me if I have zero life habits that will ever open my consciousness to an awareness of that presence. And I just was way out of practice, man. I had a flabby belly when it came to those parts.
Right,
and so you're right. I guess I did do things, and I was after something. But at the same time, what the last year and a half has been like doesn't feel like the result of some technique or I found some practice or something.
Yeah, it can't be.
It happened to me as much as I happened to it, I guess.
Yeah, that's super encouraging. Well, and I love the last bit you added there, which is often more academic types that are doubting or curious or frustrated. They'll move towards an apologetic frame first. Fair enough. That can help. But then you're also saying, no, there was some other folks that helped me with a different kind of analysis. And I don't know, sadly, not all pastors are trained in some of those ways of thinking. So they, in my tribes, they'll say things to academic types like, well, let's just pray for you. I mean, maybe we can just blow the dust off this. Which can help, by the way.
Yes, it
happen.
Can. Yes, it can.
But some of the authors you just described, I've found for my friends are really, really helpful because they are, trained. They're in the academy.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're having these experiences. And, we've had Jamie Smith and different stuff we've done in the Vineyard or these different folks where they have all the credentials and they have all the experiences and they have the analysis of thinking about culture. And this was, we could talk about this some other time, but Wimber's incredible insight when he's teaching at Fuller's, he's going, there's a paradigm problem here. This disabling people from even thinking about a supernatural framework.
Yes, exactly right.
That if we can just sort of chip away at that, we might not knock it over to where someone might even ask, could I place myself in front of God and say, come Holy Spirit? What if he does then? Then that gives more fuel to think and chip away differently and see formation and it's exactly what you're saying. I see a confluence of a number of things that just put you in a posture to receive. It's not magic.
No, it's not.
But it's those are helpful thoughts. There's lots of people I experience in that place.
I think that's part of why when my friend at church asked me if I would share about my journey with prayer in front of the church and other people. It was a moment where I was like, it's being vulnerable in ways that I'm not normally.
Sure.
But I just had this deep sense I know I'm not the only person who's somewhere on the similar kind of track. And so if sharing my experience could be helpful for some other people, especially people in ministry leadership. Because you get a number of years into that career track, and if you're really invested in it and you actually care, these deficiencies in your own character or your own faith journey can become these really embarrassing places that if you don't have a place to talk about them, they can really fester. So no pun intended with what happened with my throat, but I mean, it can be, or just your ability to explain what it means to be a Christian can so outpace your actual lived habits and life choices. And then living with that disintegrated life, it's very difficult. And I have discovered that it's very common.
It's very common, and it is disproportionate, so it gets lopsided.
Yeah.
Plus, you add in there are unique kinds of pains that come from doing church.
Yeah.
The thing I'm always talking about with leaders is the death by paper cuts problem. It might not be any specific moment, but it's the fairly constant criticism. I'm sure no one ever criticizes the Bible Project. But if you could imagine a world where people would offer criticism to teaching, I'm sure you guys are so tight it doesn't happen. But to pastors it can, week in and week out.
Yes.
Or to watch people walking in and out of church out of something like COVID and friends you lose, betrayals along the way are part and parcel of the work. That's not I did hear
compromises.
That That's right.
Having to make a decision.
Yes.
There's no ideal decision.
Yes.
So you have to live with an okay decision, but that opens you to criticism, and you're like, I know.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to do this. This is the best.
But those types of decisions add up over time too.
They do.
It's easy to believe that you're not actually like a healthy person with integrity.
Totally. Well, and those things add up.
Yeah.
So again, it's the accumulation of paper cuts. No one paper cut are you like, I got to go to the hospital. But if I just paper cut you every day for 10 years.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You
start to get hurt.
Well, and you start flinching too. My experience is people start to flinch. The choice you made to be vulnerable is not a choice people take often. Nah, even if I start to grow in something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah.
No thanks. I know what happens.
Yep.
When you put yourself in front of people, somebody's going to take a swing at you.
Yeah.
And so you watch pastors get more and more professional, better and better at what they do, but they're lopsided in a way that people can't see. So the kind of work you're describing isn't, and it's also interesting where it comes in your story. It's not at some falling apart moment. You're kind of at a height of your professional abilities. Like things are working. People like what you do. You get decent feedback. It makes it even harder to stop yourself.
Sure. Yes.
And say, this is all going fine, but something under the hood is rattling here.
Yes. Yeah.
There's some kind of cable loose here. I don't know what. It's still driving, I think, but do I have the courage to allow God to look at that with me and then allow a few folks in with me? And then if I do see some growth, I'm going to have to admit that I haven't been doing great in front of people. That's leadership. Aren't leaders supposed to have it together? So I can't even tell you how much I appreciate your journey and the work you've done with God. And of course, this is the part where we say the thing that we should mean more than, where you say to God be the glory, but it really is true.
Yeah.
The way you described it, that's not just a stereotypical thing to say. He did a great thing for you.
Yeah. In a way, just putting it that way, that really feels like what my adult life journey has been.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like it's all happened to me as much as I have happened to it. Starting from like going to the skate park, But even before that.
Right.
Like my parents and their bravery and faith and like all of that. It's all happened. And in reality, that is the truth about human existence.
It is
that it's happening to us and we are happening to it. And all our tales are kind of the outcome of the partnership of our choices and also things that we could have never determined that are just part of God's generous grace in our lives. And sometimes it doesn't feel like grace, and sometimes it does. And that's the journey. So when I think about like my family, and especially the Bible Project, because it's had a successful journey over its 8 years of existing, but not for a second. It's not even a temptation to take any credit for it.
Yeah.
It's not even a thought that enters my mind because it's so improbable that any of it should have happened. Much less that you and I would be sitting here on a flying space rock. Much less that I would be following Jesus and any of that. It's so improbable that it's just like, wow, cool, another day doing that
Amen.
with these people. And so that on good days when I've had a good night's sleep,
Exactly.
my kids haven't woke me up in the middle of the night.
Right. Totally.
That's where I'm able to be and to meet God in prayer at the beginning of the day and celebrate that and go into my day with that mindset is those are good days.
Amen. Yeah.
Those are good days.
Well, my commitment is to continue to pray for you.
Thank you, Jay.
I just believe in the work you do. And I mean, it's starting to get a little embarrassing. I bring it up regularly within any of the Vineyard contexts. Like, I think you should just turn to the Bible Project. They have a lot of tools that are really helpful. And why wouldn't you use this instead of that? Like, or why are you trying to make stuff up when we can build off of the great stuff that these guys do?
You know, last time we were together, you talked about how you take certain videos and edit them into shorter chunks.
Yep.
So we're working on an idea.
Okay, good. Okay.
We're working on some ideas.
I'm still doing it, by the way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I'm about to jump into an Isaiah series. I'm about to do it again.
Sweet. No, it's good. It's launched some really good conversations.
Oh, good.
About meeting our different parts of our audience that we want to serve, especially ministry leaders.
Yeah.
How can we make even things that already exist, but remake them so that they are dialed in even more to ministry use?
Yeah.
So thank you for that comment you made.
Oh, yeah.
When we were hanging out last, because we want to experiment with some things.
Well, you're giving me more credit than I deserve. I just told you what I'm doing. I just said, I don't know. And I always felt a little guilty. Like, am I allowed to do this? But
yeah, it's fine.
But yeah,
it's fine. No, it's a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's been useful. And I could not be more grateful for your work.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah.
So
thank you. And Jay, just, you inserted yourself into my life in the last year and a half.
It's true.
But it's one of those moments where it's like, I am grateful too. Like I have gleaned so much from the conversations and times that we've had together and your presence in my life, though we don't see each other very often. It's always an experience of generosity and grace. And so I look forward to wherever the friendship goes.
Amen.
Next.
Yeah, I'll just keep inserting myself.
Fine. That's fine. Well, now you've made some friends with some of my friends.
It's true. I know. I'm closing in.
We're going.
You can't escape me.
It's great. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah. It's good to talk with you, Jay.